Welcome to section 5. Now in this section, we're going to be building a library management system. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to plan out an application. And what we're going to talk about briefly is just the basics of planning software, and also we're going to briefly look at class diagrams. And what we're going to be managing in that library are books. So let's say you have a large collection of physical books because you like to read, and you want to model these in code and have the data live in software, some sort of software, so that you can easily sort them, parse them, find what books that you have, make it searchable, so on and so forth. So let's take a look at a possible class diagram for this type of code. So the tool I'm using to make diagrams is called Draw.io. It's a free web tool that you can use in conjunction with like Google Drive and some other online tools to make diagrams in general, like flowcharts and so forth. But it also includes what are called UML diagrams. Now, UML is its own field in itself in software engineering, but the gist of this is that it allows you to easily plan out classes. Remember that classes encapsulate, and also structures, they encapsulate code and logic. So one key aspect of planning software is thinking about the purpose of your program or library, whatever you're making, and then thinking about how you can split up the code in logical ways. So what makes sense in your code as to how to split the code among different classes. So in this case, we're making a library management program or system. So the way that I split this up is that I thought we're going to have a main application. So this is basically the control center for directing what should happen based on user input. So basically, while the application is running, we're constantly prompting the user for input. We're getting their input as an action. We're getting the necessary input information for that action, as you'll see later. We can also display help and just so on and so forth. So application is going to be the class name. So that's what's at the top here in these blocks. So each of these squares is its own class or structure. So up at the top is the name. And here we have the member functions of the class. Now a plus sign indicates that these functions are public. So remember our class modifiers. If it was a minus, that means that it would be private, and a hash sign indicates protected. But these will all be public, so they all have plus signs. Then you have the name of the function. Any inputs that you have would go in here, like this. And actually, this is incorrect. So you have the name of the input, and then the type of the input after it. We can save that. Similarly, you have the name of the function, then a colon, and then the return type of the function. So this is how I broke down the application class. Next, we're obviously going to need something to hold information about one single book. So this will be a structure with 3 member variables called author, title, and genre. These will all be strings. Next, we have the book library. So this will be a class that has a private member variable, notice the minus sign here, of a vector of the structure book. So this is basically our entire library, so a list of books, thus the name book library. Now this book library is going to be the class that actually executes a lot of the logic for searching through our library, sorting it, and also just returning the raw data. And finally, I also put in here a utility class that I will be writing that you won't really have to worry about, but it's a library parser, so it'll allow us to save our library and then load it in between program runs, so we don't have to manually create our library every time we run our software. So that's the gist of class diagrams. And it's a good exercise to, even just on pen and paper or pencil and paper, just write down the classes that you think would make sense for something like this. And that's a key part of software engineering in general and developing, that the tendency is to want to dive into the code right away and start coding immediately, but then you may end up running into problems much later down the road and then have to go back and change a bunch of things. So it's much better to sit down, think about what you're going to do, how you could structure it, and then once you have a plan, even something like this that outlines the various classes and structures, then it's much easier to write the code because everything is way more focused. You know exactly what you're writing, you know exactly what functions it's going to have, and you can make minor tweaks here and there depending on what you discover as you're writing the code, but overall you have a plan, and that's really important for writing software.